Long before the city crowned him governor, before men lowered their voices when he entered a room, before newspapers printed his name in heavy black ink, there was simply a father. He was a younger man then, driven by a fire that frightened criminals and inspired ordinary people. He stood in courtrooms and promised to drag corruption into the light. He spoke of justice with such conviction that even his enemies believed him. And because they believed him, they feared him. The governor's enemies searched for a weakness. They searched through his finances, his friendships, and his private affairs. They found nothing. Then they discovered he had a daughter. She was barely a year old, a child with soft, dark eyes. A child who laughed whenever he lifted her into the air. A child who knew nothing of power, politics, or danger. The threats began quietly. A note left inside his vehicle. A photograph slipped beneath his office door. A voice on a telephone line in the middle of the night. At first, he ignored them. Then, one morning he returned home to find the nursery window open. Nothing had been taken. Nothing had been damaged, but on the crib was a single black feather. The message was clear. We can reach her. For 3 nights, the father did not sleep. He sat beside the crib and watched his daughter breathe. Every small sound made him reach for the pistol hidden beneath his coat. Every shadow looked like an assassin. Every hour deepened the terror.
He could protect the city. He could not protect his child. And so he made the decision that would haunt the rest of his life. Far from the capital, hidden among grey hills and forgotten roads, stood an orphanage known as the House of Ash. Nobody knew how it earned its name. Some said the building had been constructed on the ruins of an old monastery destroyed by fire. Others claimed sorrow itself lingered in the walls like smoke. Whatever the truth, it was a place where forgotten children disappeared into forgotten years. The father arrived before dawn. Rain fell from a black sky. His daughter slept in his arms, wrapped in a faded blanket, unaware that her entire life was about to change. When the caretaker opened the door, the man who would one day become a governor could not speak. His throat closed. His hands trembled. The old woman waited patiently. She had seen many abandoned children, but she had never seen a father cry like this. For several minutes, he simply stood there, holding the little girl against his chest, breathing in the scent of her hair, trying desperately to memorize everything. At last, he whispered her name, Elara. The old woman reached for the child. He almost refused. His arms tightened instinctively. His heart rebelled. Every instinct screamed that a father should never surrender his daughter to strangers. But another voice whispered something far crueler. A dead daughter cannot be protected. With shaking hands, he kissed her forehead. Then he handed her away. The child stirred. Her tiny fingers caught his sleeve. For one impossible moment, he nearly abandoned the plan, nearly turned around, nearly chose love over caution. But fear won. The caretaker carried the child inside. The door closed, and with it closed a chapter of both their lives. The father remained in the rain long after sunrise, listening, waiting, hoping to hear her cry one final time. But all he heard was silence. 10 years later, he still heard that silence. It followed him into government halls. It sat beside him during state dinners. It stood behind him during public speeches. The city saw a powerful leader. Only he knew he was a grieving father. Because months after leaving Elara at the House of Ash, a fire consumed part of the orphanage. Records vanished. Witnesses disappeared. And somewhere within the confusion came the report that shattered what remained of his heart. His daughter was dead. The enemies had found her after all. From that day forward, something inside him hardened. The warmth left his eyes. The laughter disappeared from his voice. The grieving father slowly transformed into the Iron Governor. Yet while he mourned a daughter he believed lost forever, the child herself still lived. The fire had not taken Elara. The system had. She grew up among peeling walls and echoing hallways. She grew up learning that some children received visitors while others did not. She belonged to the second group. Every year she waited. Every birthday she hoped. Every Christmas she watched other children leave through the gates holding the hands of relatives. And every Christmas she remained behind, waiting for footsteps that never came, waiting for a name nobody would tell her, waiting for a family she could not remember. The years passed slowly inside the House of Ash. For some children, childhood arrived like a river, carrying them forward with laughter, family gatherings, scraped knees, birthday cakes, and bedtime stories. For Elara, childhood arrived like winter, quiet, cold, and far too long. The House of Ash stood beyond the city's attention, hidden among hills that seemed permanently wrapped in mist. The world remembered it only when paperwork demanded it. Donations arrived irregularly, repairs came late, promises came often and disappeared even faster. The children learned not to expect much. Hope in the House of Ash was a dangerous thing. It appeared brightly, then vanished. The younger children still possessed it. They rushed toward every visitor, every stranger, every car that appeared beyond the gates. Maybe they're here for me. Those words echoed through the halls year after year. Sometimes they were true. Most times they were not. Elara learned this lesson earlier than most. At first, she waited. She waited on birthdays. She waited on holidays. She waited when visitors toured the orphanage. She waited when social workers arrived carrying clipboards. She waited when prospective parents walked through the dormitories, smiling politely. But as the years passed, the waiting became harder. Then it became painful. Then it became something else entirely. Eventually, she stopped waiting, or at least she pretended to. Yet every time the gates opened, her eyes still drifted toward them. Every single time. Because a small part of her refused to die. A small part of her still wondered, who had she been before the House of Ash? Who had chosen her name? Who had held her when she cried? Who had taught her first words? Why had they left? No one could answer. The records surrounding her arrival were incomplete. The fire years earlier had destroyed much of the archive.
The staff changed frequently. Most knew her only as another child among many, another forgotten life moving quietly through forgotten years. Only old Miriam, the elderly caretaker who had received her as an infant, seemed different. Miriam never spoke much about the past. Whenever Elara asked questions, the old woman would grow strangely quiet. Her eyes would linger on the girl's face. Then she would simply say, "Some truths arrive when they're ready." As a child, Elara hated that answer. As she grew older, she hated it even more, because truth never seemed ready. Truth never arrived. Only questions did. Questions multiplied with age. By 16, they followed her everywhere. By 18, they sat beside her at every meal. By 22, they slept beside her at night. The worst question was always the same. Why was she never chosen? The answer, though she could not see it, was painfully simple. Most children arrived with stories, even tragic stories. Parents who had died, families who could not provide, relatives who disappeared, histories that could be explained. Elara had none. She was a blank page, and blank pages frightened people. One autumn afternoon, she sat alone beneath the old ash tree that stood near the rear wall of the orphanage. The tree was ancient. Nobody knew how old. Its bark twisted like weathered hands reaching toward the sky. Many children considered it ugly. Elara loved it, perhaps because it looked lonely, perhaps because it survived anyway. She sat beneath its branches, reading a worn novel rescued from the orphanage library. Most of the pages had loosened from the spine. The cover had vanished years earlier. Still, she treasured it. Books offered something reality rarely did: escape. As she read, laughter drifted across the yard. A younger girl had just been adopted. Several children gathered around her. The girl smiled through tears while clutching a stuffed rabbit. A woman knelt beside her. A man stood nearby. Parents, a family, a future.
Elara lowered her eyes back to the book. The words blurred. For reasons she could never fully explain, moments like these hurt more as she grew older. When she was small, she envied the children who left. Now she envied the certainty. Someone, somewhere, had looked at them and said, "You belong with us." Nobody had ever said that to her, not once. That night she lay awake long after the others slept. Moonlight spilled through the narrow dormitory windows. The familiar ache returned, the ache of existing without roots, without history, without anyone. Eventually, she rose from bed and crossed quietly toward the window. Beyond the grounds, city lights flickered faintly in the distance. Thousands of people, thousands of homes, thousands of families. She wondered where she would be 5 years from now. 10, 20. Would anything ever change? Or would she simply become another forgotten adult produced by the House of Ash? The thought frightened her more than she cared to admit, because she had seen what happened to some who left. Loneliness followed them. The institution released them. The world ignored them. And eventually, many drifted into lives they never wanted. She promised herself she would be different. Somehow, she just didn't know how. The answer arrived 3 years later, and it arrived wearing an expensive suit. The first time Elara saw Julian, she almost missed him. He stood near the administrative office speaking with one of the directors. Unlike most visitors, Julian did not appear uncomfortable. Many outsiders visited the orphanage carrying sympathy on their faces. Julian carried confidence, the kind that entered a room before the man himself. Tall, well-dressed, perfectly composed, the sort of man who seemed to belong wherever he stood. Elara paid little attention at first. Visitors came and went.
They rarely affected her life. Yet over the following weeks, she noticed him repeatedly. He returned often, sometimes for charitable meetings, sometimes for administrative discussions, sometimes, seemingly, for no reason at all. The staff liked him. He donated generously. He remembered names. He listened carefully. He smiled easily. People trusted him. Looking back years later, Elara would remember that as his greatest talent. Not manipulation, trust. Julian understood trust better than most people understood themselves. He knew exactly how to earn it, exactly how to cultivate it, exactly how to weaponize it. Their first real conversation happened beside the old ash tree. She sat reading. He approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Without asking permission, he placed one beside her. "You always sit here." She looked up cautiously. "I like the quiet." He glanced toward the tree. Or maybe the company. A small smile touched her lips beside herself. Trees don't talk. That's why people like them. For a moment, she laughed. A genuine laugh. The kind she rarely allowed herself. Something shifted. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, just the smallest crack in years of isolation. Julian noticed. Of course he noticed. He noticed everything. Over the weeks that followed, conversations became routine, then expected, then anticipated. He asked questions others never asked. Not the polite questions, the real ones. What books did she enjoy? What dreams did she have? What places did she want to visit? What future did she imagine? Most importantly, he listened. Or appeared to. For a woman who had spent much of her life feeling invisible, that attention felt intoxicating. She did not know that Julian had spent months studying her, months researching, months preparing, because long before he ever approached her, he had discovered Subject 802. The forgotten file, hidden deep within the state's oldest archives. The file connected to secrets powerful enough to change his life forever. He had not searched for love. He had searched for opportunity. And opportunity had a name, Elara. Though she knew none of this, she gradually began lowering her defenses. For the first time in years, she looked forward to tomorrow. Julian brought books, remembered conversations, sent thoughtful messages, appeared precisely when she needed encouragement. Every lonely corner of her heart seemed mysteriously visible to him. It felt miraculous. In reality, it was calculated. Yet, calculations can imitate affection remarkably well. Months passed. The relationship deepened. One evening, they walked beyond the orphanage grounds as sunset painted the hills gold. The wind moved softly through the grass. The city shimmered far below. Julian stopped walking. His expression seemed unusually serious. "Can I ask you something?" Elara nodded. "What? What do you want most?" She expected something romantic. Instead, his question caught her off guard. She thought carefully, then answered honestly. "A home." The words emerged quietly, almost embarrassingly. Yet once spoken, they felt undeniable. A real home. Julian studied her face. "You deserve one." No grand declaration, no dramatic speech, just 4 words. "You deserve one." Something inside her nearly broke, because nobody had ever said those words before. Not once. The setting sun hid the tears gathering in her eyes, but Julian saw them, and internally he smiled, because he knew exactly how close she was now, exactly how firmly the hook had set. What Elara did not know was that Julian's polished appearance hid a collapsing world. His debts had grown monstrous. Creditors demanded payment. Dangerous people expected results. The inheritance tied to Subject 802 represented salvation. Perhaps millions, perhaps more. Enough to erase every problem. Enough to transform failure into triumph. All he needed was complete access, complete legal authority, complete control. And for that, he needed marriage. So the courtship accelerated, faster than it should have, faster than wisdom would recommend. But loneliness has a way of making certainty look like love, and Elara had been lonely for most of her life. When Julian proposed, she said yes before fear could interfere. She said yes before doubt could speak. She said yes because for the first time since childhood, someone had looked at her and chosen her. Or so she believed. The wedding was small, simple, elegant. Several staff members from the House of Ash attended. Old Miriam attended too. Throughout the ceremony, the elderly woman watched Julian carefully, far more carefully than she watched the vows. Something unsettled her. An instinct, a warning, a feeling she could not explain. When the ceremony ended, Miriam embraced Elara tightly, almost desperately, as though holding on for one final moment. Then she whispered, "Remember who you are." Elara smiled sadly. "I don't know who I am." Miriam's eyes filled with emotion. "No," the old woman replied softly. "You simply haven't learned yet." The celebration ended long after sunset. One by one, the guests departed. The laughter faded, the music disappeared, and eventually the newlyweds found themselves alone. Elara stood beside the window of their hotel suite, gazing out at the city lights below. For the first time in her life, she was not returning to the House of Ash. For the first time, she belonged somewhere. At least, that was what she believed. Behind her, Julian appeared unusually distracted. Throughout the evening, he had smiled at the guests, raised his glass, played the role of devoted husband flawlessly. Yet now that they were alone, something felt different. His attention seemed elsewhere. His eyes drifted repeatedly toward his phone, toward his laptop, toward the briefcase he had refused to let out of his sight all day. "You seem worried," Elara said gently. Julian looked up.
For a fraction of a second, genuine panic flashed across his face. Then it vanished. "Just business." She smiled. "Tonight of all nights?" He forced a laugh. "Old habits." The answer should have satisfied her. Instead, it left a strange heaviness in the room. Later, after midnight, Elara awoke unexpectedly. The space beside her was empty. Julian was gone. The bathroom light was off. The suite was silent. She sat up. Then she heard it. A voice, low, urgent, coming from the adjoining room. Careful not to make a sound, she moved toward the partially closed door. Julian was speaking on the phone. His voice was nothing like the one she knew. There was no warmth, no tenderness, no affection. Only tension, only desperation, only fear. "I married her," he whispered harshly. A long silence followed. Then he spoke again. "No, you don't understand. The transfer still hasn't happened." Another pause. His shoulders tightened. His face darkened. The room seemed to tilt beneath her feet. She froze, unable to breathe, unable to move. Julian continued speaking. His voice dropped lower, too low for her to hear every word. But one phrase slipped through. One phrase that shattered everything she thought she knew. Subject 802. Elara frowned. Subject 802? The number sounded strangely familiar, as though she had heard it long ago, as though it belonged to a forgotten memory she could not quite reach. Julian's voice sharpened. "No." A pause. Then, "She still doesn't know." The blood drained from Elara's face. Who doesn't know what? Another silence. Then Julian laughed. Not the warm laugh she knew, not the gentle laugh that had made her trust him. This laugh was different. Cold, triumphant. The laugh of a man who believed he was about to win. Slowly, Elara stepped backward. The floor creaked. The sound seemed deafening. Julian stopped speaking. Instantly, silence. A terrible, unnatural silence. Then the doorknob began to turn. Once, slowly, carefully, as though whoever stood on the other side already knew she was there. Elara's heart hammered against her ribs. The handle turned further. The door began to open, and for the first time since she met him, she became afraid of her husband. End of part 1.